let me learn you a little something about the Civil Rights era. But before I actually get into the meat and potatoes of the Civil Rights era, I just want to get lynching over with so that this could be a nice, funny presentation. So on to the lynching. Lynching by definition is, of a mob, kill someone, especially by hanging for an alleged offense with or without legal trial. Oftentimes, if not always, lynching victims were people of color. Even though lynching was a direct violation of the Sixth Amendment and blatant murder, offenders were often not prosecuted because the judge, jury, and bailiffs also took part in the lynching. One example of a famous lynching was the lynching of Jesse Washington. Jesse Washington was convicted of raping and murdering his employer's wife. And even though I think that there is no mercy for rapists, nobody deserves what Jesse Washington got. Jesse Washington was tied to a post, dismembered, burned alive, had his body parts sold as keepsakes, and pictures taken of him sold as stamps. Now that that's all over with, let's get into the less serious stuff.
Hey, boss!
Still pretty serious. It all began in 1892 when a man by the name of Homer Plessy refused to get onto a Jim Crow car when boarding a train. Plessy argued that it was unconstitutional to make blacks sit on a separate train. Plessy argued his points in court, and the separate but equal doctrine was put in place, making segregation legal. Public restrooms were segregated, public drinking fountains were segregated, public schools were segregated, everything was segregated, whites and colored. If you wanted nice bathrooms, nope. If you wanted nice food, nope. If you want a nice education, nope. If you want a nice, nope. If nope. Blacks even had to sit in the back of the bus, which takes me to protests. The Montgomery bus boycott began when Rosa Parks decided not to give up her seat to a white person on December 1st, 1955. This was also the start of the Civil Rights Movement. Taking notes from Rosa, colored people all over Montgomery boycotted the Montgomery bus system to show the system would not work without them. Other protests involved sit-ins and marches. The most famous set of marches was the Selma marches. The Selma to Montgomery marches sprang from unfair voting registration processes that always rejected colored people's rights to vote.
I'm just here trying to register to vote.
Recite the Constitution's preamble.
We the people more perfect union.
How many county Alabama is in judges?
67.
Name them.
There were 3 marches. The first one, they didn't get very far. The second one, they were met with police brutality. The third one, I don't remember what happened in the third one. I didn't really pay attention too much to Selma. I mean, I had seen the movie before already, but please don't dock points, Arcella. On Wednesday, March 17th, Federal Judge Johnson ruled in favor of the protesters, saying their First Amendment right to march and protest could not be abridged by the state of Alabama. So they made it the third time. It is now 11 o'clock, and I have a lot more finals to do. On to Lyndon Johnson. Lyndon Johnson was this guy, you may have heard of him. He did this thing called the Great Society, which is supposed to address poverty and racism within the United States. He signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which was like, yeah, but it didn't really do its job. On the side of racism, there was the aforementioned Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And on the side of poverty, which doesn't really fit into the theme of this presentation, LBJ did a lot of things like food stamps, Medicare, Medicaid, housing, free school lunch, and financial aid. There's also the National Endowment of Arts and Humanities, and I don't know how that fit in with racism and poverty, but good on you, LBJ. This concludes my presentation. Don't drink lean, stay in school, stay away from that negative press covfefe. Thank you.